Hello and welcome to a brand new LinkedIn Live this Wednesday afternoon, the 3rd of March. I'm Ankit Vengurlekar. I'm the managing editor here at LinkedIn News in India. And this is Get Hired India, LinkedIn News India's definitive show on bringing you the top trends for hiring across sectors and across skill sets. The show is co-hosted by my colleague Dipti Jain and me, and today it's my turn and absolute privilege to speak to a fantastic guest. I've known Debjani Ghosh over the years. Earlier, when she used to work at Intel as a tech journalist, I've met and interviewed her a couple of times. But now, more than ever, her role and the work she's doing is extremely critical as a president of NASSCOM. Now, NASSCOM has been in the news a lot of late because of a fantastic report that they come up with every single year. It's called the Strategic Review. And the Strategic Review 2021 just came out, and close on the heels of that, there was a huge NASSCOM Technology Leadership Forum where everyone from the Prime Minister to top IT industry leaders spoke. And we caught up with Debjani then as well. So absolutely delighted to have Debjani Ghosh here with us today to talk about all of the top trends that Indian IT has gone through in the pandemic year of 2020. What are the future skills that are going to be in demand and how she personally has navigated the tumultuous year of 2020. Hello, Debjani. Lovely to have you here.
Hey Ankit, lovely to be here. And by the way, I just realized it's March when you said it. I mean, what's happening with 2021? This is like whoosh. I
A
was
roller
still
coaster.
happily thinking we're in Feb.
Yes, and all those
Yeah.
memes, hey, it
It
was
just
March
hit me when
just
you said it. I was
yesterday.
like, what?
Absolutely. So this is a LinkedIn Live, which means we would love to hear your questions if you have any feedback, comments for Debjani about IT sector, about the future of jobs, etc. in this sector. The QR codes that you see on the screen, feel free to pull up your phone and scan them. It will directly take you to the profile of our respective profiles and also the Get Hired India newsletter. All right, so let's jump straight in. And Debjani, I'd love to hear from you. It's been 1 year since the pandemic came to our country and the lockdowns were announced. And for you personally, how has the last 1 year been? I do keep up with some of your tweets and your cooking adventures with your mother, and you keep posting those things. But how has the last 1 year been?
Um, haven't had time to breathe, reflect, pause, anything. I think it's last year has been one of the busiest years, not just for me, but for my entire team at NASSCOM, because there was just so much to do. There was so much to do, ensure that this industry of ours doesn't have to take a pause for forget a day, but even a few hours, because that would have impacted not just our industry, but it would have impacted the world. It would have impacted banks, hospitals, governments that are being run by our industry. I think the Prime Minister, Ankit, if you heard in his speech at the NASSCOM Tech and Leadership Forum, summed it up brilliantly. He said that when the world's chips were down, your codes kept the world running. And I mean, I couldn't agree more with that statement. So it's been amazing. It's been tremendously busy. And I'm thankful for that, because being stuck at home for a year, if I had nothing to do, I know I wouldn't have been able to, survive this. I would have just gone crazy. I mean, this is um, unimaginable what has happened to all of us. But the work, thankfully, has kept me busy. Yes, I have been trying my hand at becoming a domestic goddess, where I failed miserably, managed to figure out how to make a few omelets and a few things in the kitchen. Also, taken to yoga, and I love it. I absolutely love it, and taken to learning how to code. So these are some of my pet projects that has been keeping me busy.
That's fantastic. You've made very good use of your time working from home. But hats off to you and the IT sector, really. Here on LinkedIn, we have a very, very vibrant community of representation of the IT sector. And we are already seeing that in the comments. People are already asking, what is the future of Internet of Things? What is the future of multiple other things? We'll get to the questions. But before that, the IT sector, as stated in the Strategic Review 2021 report by NASSCOM, really proved a lot of the analysts wrong. right at the turn of the pandemic when lockdowns, etc., were announced, a lot of global attention came to Indian IT because this really drives global movement and supports businesses as well, our IT sector. And it actually registered a 2.3% growth in the pandemic year when almost every other sector around us was degrowing. So if you could possibly, give us a gist of what are two or three things that the Indian IT sector, from your vantage point of view, did correct, adapted, hyper adapted, and made itself relevant to actually register a 2% growth?
The first thing is the mindset, the entire leadership mindset in a crisis. And I know it sounds cliched, but it is the most important thing. Um, the IT sector and across the IT sector, and I work with leaders of small companies, big companies, but across the sector, the mindset was that of we have to find a solution. It wasn't, oh my God, what's happening? We have to shut down, or, we can't work anymore. What do we do? From day one, from the time COVID became a reality and we realized how big this was going to be, we were already preparing for the lockdown. The lockdown wasn't really that big a surprise. I mean, all of us knew it was coming. Um, the mindset was one of forward looking. What do we have to do to adapt? What's needed to adapt? What needs to change? How do we prepare for it? And second thing was the willingness to collaborate. When finally the lockdown happened, we had already started working with the government to get all the approvals in place so that companies could work from home, which was not just moving people to their homes, but it's moving people to their hometowns, which is a completely different ball game. And second, moving secure assets, PCs, laptops, etc., to their homes so that they can continue to work on it. So, I mean, the logistics of this was, I mean, someday I'm sure someone will write a book on it, but the logistics of managing this in less than 10 days was just absolutely crazy. And the beauty, what happened was everyone came together. I think NASSCOM, the way I see it, was really the glue that brought the entire industry together. But the industry were very, very willing collaborators. For example, I still remember we were struggling in Mumbai to figure out how to get the laptops across because they'd come down hard and the local administrators were saying no at that point. And somebody figured out a way where they were working with the home guards to get this done. And rather than keep quiet and use it as a competitive advantage, the person came out and said, hey, I figured this way out, inform all other members, the community, the industry, they can do it. And this is the kind of collaboration, sharing, which I thought went a long way. And last but not the least was the agility, the speed with which we embraced what's coming rather than, a lot of people wasted the crisis by sitting and cribbing about it and sitting and cribbing about not having the past. You know there anymore, and so much time got wasted just crying about, oh my God, I can't do this and I can't do that. That's something we did not do at all. Every discussion, every meeting, and we were having regular meetings with all the CEOs, leaders, day-to-day meetings to figure out what next, what do we do. Every meeting was about, okay, so what do we have to do to change? What are the opportunities that this change will bring? And how do we leverage these opportunities? So that's why I said, to me, the most important thing was the mindset, the forward-looking, progressive mindset, the willingness to change and willingness to change quickly, and the collaboration in the industry to say that it's about all of us getting through this and not just one company. I think that was what was key.
That's fantastic and absolutely unprecedented in the way Indian IT responded. And that hyper collaboration is very, very evident in the way the industry or the sector has grown, apart from just individual players. One of the key things that the pandemic and the brand new normal of working because of the hyper digitization, virtualization, All of this pretty much gave a shot in the arm to the 5 and 10 year plans that people had for digitalization, and it had to happen overnight. That also meant that massive workforces had to reskill themselves at record speeds. So I actually want to bring in the NASSCOM Future Skills program over here. 2 years ago, I think it was in 2018, 3 years ago, is when the Future Skills program was kickstarted to identify the skills that are going to be relevant 5 to 10 years thereon, but they're relevant today. And that happened in 2020. So, do you have an update on the Future Skills program? Number one, at a 30,000 feet level, if you could talk about that. And then, of course, if you could go into a slight more detail about what are the actual skills that are currently in hot demand for the Indian IT sector, which would result in very, very promising and gratifying career opportunities for students and young professionals.
Sure. So, Future Skills now is the national platform in collaboration with the government, with MIT, the Ministry of IT and Electronics, to digitally skill the nation. We have one goal: to make India the talent nation. If you remember, Ankit, years earlier, when the entire startup ecosystem was just becoming a reality, people were waking up to the concept of entrepreneurship and startups. Israel came in beautifully and said, "We are the startup nation." I think this is our opportunity, India's opportunity, to come in and say, we are the talent nation to the world. And we have, by the way, a lot of credibility for making this statement, because talent is where investments will go in the future. Talent is going to rewrite every rule of competition. It's the most scarce resource available to a CEO today. So, talent will rewrite the rules of competition, and talent will determine who invests and where. So, it is the thing for you to focus on. Thankfully, when we were talking to the government, they got it, especially the Prime Minister, Minister of IT Secretary. I mean, they got it in the first conversation. And we have worked together, the government has worked with us hand in hand to ensure we develop a very robust platform, Future Skills, which now exists in three avatars. You have Future Skills, the first version, which is B2B, which is for industry to train upskill their people. Then we have launched Future Skills Prime a few months back, which is a joint initiative with MIT to train around 4 million people in the next few years, and not just in the IT industry, but across industries. Everyone who has to work with technology, be it in hospitals, be it in retail, be it manufacturing, whatever, and of course, students. And the third area of focus in Future Skills is universities, where we are doing a lot of work with universities to not just train the students, but also train the faculty. So these are the three wings. We have roughly touched more than 500,000 people to date across all the three initiatives. And, the numbers keep growing because we just launched Future Skills Prime, the joint initiative with MIT, a few months back. And I think in just a few months, over 140,000 people were on the platform. And what was amazing is to see the percentage of completion was in double digits. I forget the exact number, but we had a very healthy percentage of completion of courses, which is not common for online platforms. So that's a high level view of Future Skills. What can you learn there? It's not just about learning about technology. Yes, you can come in and learn about technology, but we have designed Future Skills in a way that it will create, it will amp up your employability. And in order for you to be seen as employable today, or to say that you are employable, you need a few things. You need a strong foundation in technology. You need very strong foundation in some of the professional skills: communication, collaboration, design thinking, project work, etc., etc. And last but not the least, I think the most important trait you need to demonstrate that you are willing to learn, that you have an adaptable mindset. And that's the design of Future Scales, because it's a continuous learning platform, and it is going to build your foundation. It is also going to take you into major depth if you're interested in a particular area. It is also going to give you a lot of training in some of the professional skills, design thinking, creativity, etc. And it is a great way to demonstrate that you are interested in learning because you're part of that community, the number of badges that you have, etc., which every employer is looking for. And I think we are on the right track because, as NASSCOM, our role is to catalyze change. That's how I see ourselves. And I think we have catalyzed this focus on learning big time, because today, as we stand, 1 out of 4 tech employees in India are digitally skilled, which is pretty remarkable. And I think we have to ensure that we take that number even higher. We are the leaders in STEM talent. We now have to lead in digital tech talent. And, we already have around 1.17 million people in India that are digitally skilled, but we have to take it to the next level. You asked about the areas. Now, some of the areas where we are seeing tremendous demand is cloud computing, data analytics, AI, of course, IoT, cybersecurity. All of these areas in India is creating significant new jobs, and there's tremendous demand for people. In fact, the digital talent pool, the supply side, is growing roughly around 30%, 28 to 30%. But the demand side, or the number of job openings, is growing between 34 to 38%. So that tells you that the demand today is much higher than the supply. So if you are interested in technology, these are the areas you have to focus on. But not just building depth in these areas, you must have a strong foundation across these areas, because today it's not about one technology, it's about orchestrating different technologies. Build a strong foundation across, go deep in at least one area, and build very strong professional skills, and show the willingness or the interest in learning by engaging in one of these learning platforms. Or it's great to go into an interview and show these are the learning badges that I have got in the last 12 months. I would love it if a candidate came and showed me the badges that he or she has completed and earned, learning badges over the last few months. So, these are the kind of things you should be looking at. Sorry for a tremendously long answer.
No, that really helps, Debjani. Thank you so much for that clarity. The demand for digitally skilled employees. I think what blew my mind from the answer is you said 1 out of 4 people in Indian IT sector are digitally skilled today. If you think of it, that means that 75% of work is still left. And that is the kind of demand. And the other factoid that blew my mind is that the supply of digitally skilled or skilled IT workers is between 28 to 30%, but the demand is actually far exceeding that at about 35 odd percent. So, which is why it continues to be a sunrise sector, registering growth in an economic environment where most other sectors are degrowing.
Just
I want
one
to.
clarification, Ankit.
Mhm.
There's a misconception that it's only the IT sector requires digital skills. Today, in order to
Right.
be successful, you need digital skills across sectors. Hospitals are hiring coders, banks are hiring coders and cybersecurity experts. So, this is not just an IT sector conversation anymore. I think given that technology is all pervasive, this is now across sectors.
That's a great clarification. Digital skills, digital know how is all pervasive and sector agnostic in a way. Let's take a couple of member questions. Lots of great questions coming in here. Swati Krishnan is asking, and it was actually one of the questions on my list for you, Debjani. How does the work from home scenario look like for Indian IT post the pandemic? Is this a trend that is here to stay? If so, what are the changes, including infrastructure, company culture, recruitment? And just to add to that, Debjani, we're really seeing an uptick in number of people actually being asked to resume offices now that phase 1 of vaccination is done. Phase 2 has just begun 1st March onwards, and that's really giving a lot of confidence to workforce and to companies, etc. Hybrid working, remote working, or back to work from office, what do you see?
First of all, Swati, brilliant question. Love the way you articulated it. Um, I think what's going to change or what's going to be new in the post vaccination, I won't say post pandemic because pandemic is not going away anywhere. It's going to stay even after vaccination. But post vaccination, after most of us are vaccinated, I think what's going to change is you and I are going to have the choice to decide whether we choose to work from home or whether we choose to work from office. And companies are going to have the choice to decide um, how many employees or what kind of employees or what kind of projects, rather, they want employees to be in campus on ground for versus what kind of work will be done from home. And the reason I'm stating this because while yes, the future looks hybrid, but I don't think that we can have a formula that will apply to everyone, and we should not have a formula that will apply to everyone because I believe companies can actually shape competitive advantage by thinking through this formula a little bit, customizing it, and leveraging it to the fullest to actually disrupt some of their business processes. So I honestly think this is a tremendous opportunity to shape to strengthen your differentiator as a company. So therefore, um, employees and companies are going to have that choice depending, of course, on the kind of work they do. There's some work which will have to be done in campus, which requires that face-to-face collaboration, etc. And there's some work which does not. So they will have to figure out how do they want to play it and how what is the right percentage for each. But all that said and done, I do believe we have a significantly tough challenge ahead of us to make the hybrid model work. Hybrid model is not just about remote work, that's the easiest part of it. Hybrid model will require us to completely disrupt HR practices. I mean, HR as we know it is not going to cut it. It's not going to work. And the quicker we realize that and we accept that, the quicker we can start working on driving the changes, which, by the way, this industry already has. Um, we have to rethink HR completely because as HR, we now have to manage a workforce which is not just working, part of it is working from home, part of it is working in office, but a certain part of the workforce could only work part-time, could be gig workers. So
Right.
the complexities, or it's not, we are so used to having a workforce that looks and feels the one way. It's like a very homogeneous mass. It's not going to be that. It's gonna look and feel very different in parts. So how do we ensure that we have HR practices that are fair, that's uniform across this um, very diverse, and I don't mean diverse only as gender, but hopefully it will also increase gender diversity, but very diverse kind of a workforce that companies will now have the ability to leverage. I think it's a strength. And I think it's a great challenge for companies and HR to work on. And I think it's also important to start thinking through what does culture in a hybrid model look like and feel like. I don't believe it's impossible to develop culture in a hybrid model. I absolutely believe it is possible if we can think through a different lens. We have to throw away the old lenses, they're not going to apply anymore. But yeah, yes, the future is hybrid, but I think there is a lot of work that has to go in to ensure it's a sustainable future. And NASSCOM has set up a task force that is actually very actively working on identifying what are the problems we will face in the hybrid model, what are the solutions, what are, how do we go back to that collaborative mode and get companies to share best practices, etc. um, net, I'll say, I think we have been given an opportunity to rebuild the future for the industry. So, one, we have to seize the opportunity to the fullest. We have to ensure we use this to really rebuild, because we can now rebuild it better, greener, more sustainable, more inclusive. We can fix a lot of the problems of the past. Um, and that same progressive mindset saying, there's an opportunity in here, let's change fast, let's be better, let's rebuild it better, is what's going to get us through.
That's a great answer. Rebuild, reset, and reimagine. That's how I think the workforce of the future or workplace of the future is going to be. Harsh is actually asking a fantastic question here. I'm just going to pop that up here. Companies are hiring more freelancers. Is freelancing the future? And in the new normal, we are seeing not just Indian companies hiring Indian IT skilled talent from across the country now. I could be sitting in a village in Kerala and I could be doing a plush job which was otherwise beyond my reach because of geographical constraints. And not just this, but the world is now looking at Indian IT workforce. They could be across continents or time zones, and they are now hiring remotely because you can collaborate online and you can work with the best of the minds without any geographical limitations. So, is freelancing the future? Because there are a lot of question marks here with respect to social security and benefits. What happens to pension? What happens to provident fund? What happens to these benefits to gig workers, which have traditionally only been the reserve of full-time employees?
Yeah. So, first of all, freelancing is different from remote working. You can have full-time employees remote working, and you can have freelancers on site. So freelancing and remote working are two different things, and I just want to make that very clear. um, I don't know if freelancing is the future, because as I said, to me, the future is great because the future is about us having choices. And I love any scenario where I have an ability to choose what I want to do. So I think the future is about us having those choices, provided we have the skills. Only then will our choices matter. If we are not investing in our skills, you're not going to have choices. Let me be very clear. You are going to demand, or you can shape your own future and, figure out how you want to work if you have the skills that companies want, because then they will entertain your ideas and your what you would like to do. So I think freelancing, we will see a lot of gig workers, in especially in areas, certain areas which require tremendous depth, but at the same time, security should not be a concern, because the kind of work we do, security is a huge concern. So I don't know if companies will be willing to hire, for example, cybersecurity specialists as freelancers, because that's core to our success, to our strategy. That's a core differentiator. So if you are in one of these areas that's shaping the differentiation for a company or the IT company, um, I won't say there will not be any gig workers. There might be, but I think it'll be limited. But in other areas, where security is not that big a concern, etc., etc., I think we will see increase in the gig economy and the gig in freelancers, right? Um, so we will have to see. It's too early to say how it will play out in IT. We will have to see how it plays out. But we have to, Ankit, you mentioned a very, very important point. If the gig economy has to grow and be sustainable in India, we have to rethink a lot of the labor laws and labor codes, which either way we are asking government to rethink, because if we want to grow the knowledge economy, then the traditional labor laws is not going to work for us to grow a knowledge economy. We need a completely different mindset here. And I think that work is still pending. That has to happen. And something that NASSCOM has called out as tremendously urgent for India to get right, because if we get right, I do believe it will strengthen our position as a talent hub. But remote work is definitely, or hybrid work is definitely the future. I will say that's the future. And as people uh, get more, as infrastructure improves, I mean, that has to happen. We have to have better broadband, we have to have better power supply, uninterrupted power supply, etc., in remote cities. I do believe that we will go to a scenario where people can stay in, like Sridhar Vembu is working, running Zoho out of a village in Tamil Nadu, right? I'm sure we are going to have a lot more people doing that, but not necessarily freelancers. I think they'll be full time. Um, and they'll be contributing full time. But yes, because they're in their village, they're not going through all this commute. I do believe we will see a huge impact on development of the community in these smaller towns, because these are the kind of people who will have the passion to say, let's improve education, let's improve infrastructure. So the spiraling effect I see is what excites me tremendously.
It's going to be phenomenal. Thank you for ending with that, because that actually segues me into a very, very pertinent question from one of our members, Avijit Chatterjee. Why are most Indian MNCs still stuck to the regular hiring mode? You know, the IITs, IIMs is one way only, and the only way largely to get into Indian tech MNCs, where internationally that is not the trend. People may be skilled in AI, ML, but they are unable to get into Indian MNCs just because they don't have a degree from a particular college. Do you think that's true? And how fast do you think this will change?
That's not true anymore. The number of companies that are actively working with regional colleges, tier two, tier three colleges to grow talent. See, no disrespect meant to any institute, but today there is no institute that is developing talent that is readily employable. That's a fact. Um, we have to do a lot of work to shape the talent into something that, you know, will start contributing value to the company. So it doesn't matter, frankly, what are we looking for. And by the way, for those interested, do, this is not a plug for NASSCOM, but so given the question, do go to the NASSCOM site and download this research that we have done on what companies are looking for, what are the hiring trends, and what are companies looking for when they're hiring people. It's very, very important for you all to understand that. So, what are we looking for? The most important skill today is an adaptable mindset. Where can we find people that can be groomed, trained faster? With a strong foundation in technology, science, good communication skills, good project work, project management skills, collaboration skills, all of that. So our companies are actively looking to partner with institutes where they can get these needs met. And a lot of companies today are moving out from the, the top 4 or 5 companies, or they may still hire there, but they're actively moving down and building a relationship with institutes where they can groom students earlier. Another interesting thing, our industry has significantly embraced apprenticeships and internships. Now, because we feel this is a fantastic way to get in the raw talent and help develop them the way we want. So you, as if you are a student, please, please, please do not let opportunities like apprenticeship and internship go to waste by joining an uncle's company or a father's company or whatever that we usually do and basically get a certificate. Work hard to get a really good apprenticeship, work hard to get a really good internship, because these can change your career. And it's extremely important for us to take these things seriously. So I think the hiring mindset, the hiring behavior, Ankit, is changing. And it's important to understand what companies are looking for. The research showed the number one reason a candidate gets rejected at the very end stage in these interviews is not lack of technical skills, but it is inability to clearly demonstrate um, the hunger or the interest in learning and how quickly the person can learn.
Wow, that's a big one. Learning mindset is pretty much, you're saying, one of the top traits, so to say, that new candidates must possess and exhibit clearly and articulate.
And exhibit. I get a lot of
Yes.
questions. How do you show a learning mindset? Very simple. Don't never in an interview say I have read XYZ books if you haven't read it, because God forbid the person on the other side has read the books and decides to get into a discussion on it, you are done for. So but read, read, whether it is books. There's so many ways to increase your knowledge, but we have podcasts, we have books, we have so many different ways. But you have to be prepared to talk about what you know I always ask this: which is the most interesting, or what are the three most interesting books you've read in the last 6 months? And if you haven't read three new books in the 6 months, please don't waste my time. Or sometimes the person will say, I'm not much of a reader, but I've heard three really interesting podcasts that I can discuss. Fine, I'm up for it. But things like that. Tell me, what's your learning roadmap? What have you engaged in today? Are you part of have you signed up in Coursera or Future Skills Prime or whatever? How many courses have you completed? What are the learnings? I mean, there's so many ways that you can show the passion for learning, but my only advice is don't fake it, because if the person on the other side is prepared, that unfortunately will kill your reputation and any chances you have of being hired.
That's that's great advice. That actually segues me into a personal question. What are the last two or three books that you managed to make time to read, Debjani, or any of the podcasts or videos or creators that you follow?
So actually, my library is right here, because my bed and my library. So the last two books I finished is this, The Right Choice, which is my dear friend Shiv Kumar's, and it's fantastic. It's a book about career dilemmas, and he's got 10 people, and I'm very privileged to be one of them, to talk about a very personal dilemma that we had, and then shared the details of how we actually navigated the crossroads that we were at, and went ahead in our career. And I mean, I had not read the other stories till I read the book, and just some amazingly honest stories and learning. So, loved this one. And then this I finished this weekend. This is Transformation in Time of Crisis by, again, my dear friend Nitin Rakesh. A fabulous, fabulous book about how what is the opportunity ahead for the industry to transform. So, two brilliant books in the last 10 days, which I
That's
would strongly
brilliant.
recommend.
That's amazing. I love how you have books within your arm's reach, as do I.
I
So
don't think
I
you can
feel
see my
seen.
room, but
I can't.
my bed is filled with books. My two cabinets are filled with books. So I've just segregated, like, one side is all the new books to be read, and the other side is the books that I've just finished reading. That's why I could pick these up, because I've just added it to this pile.
That's amazing. That's amazing, Debjani. I'm going to ask you two personal questions. Okay. What advice would you give young 18, 20-year-old Debjani Ghosh, just straight out of, let's say, junior college, as we call it here, and raring to go, mind full of ideas, brimming with optimism and idealism?
Ankit, I get asked that question very often, and I wouldn't change a thing, honestly. I mean, I am so privileged to have had the journey and all the downfalls, all the challenges, all the fall forward moments that I had. I think I will take every one of those because, every bruise, every fall, um, all of those have just done one thing. They've made me stronger. So I just value the journey that I have been having, and I hope it continues for at least some more time. But I think it's. But if there is one thing I could do differently, and I would tell her two things. I would tell her to start learning coding much earlier. I'm addicted to coding now. I learned it very late in life, and I just think it is so empowering. And no, coding doesn't make you billionaires and millionaires like it's stated, but coding gives you the power to solve problems that you're passionate about. So for me, that's the cake, and I would have loved it if I had taught myself coding much earlier. And the second thing I would have done differently is learn the basic culinary skills so I can survive a pandemic, which I had not learned, and I learned the hard way. But I think those are the only two things I would change.
That is phenomenal. You're such an amazing inspiration, Debjani, to people across industries, and of course in tech sector. But I think one cohort that finds you especially inspirational is young women, young girls in STEM, in IT sector. I'm going to ask you two questions with respect to this. Number one, what advice would you have to young women in STEM and IT in India? It's a cohort which is massive, and it only keeps getting bigger and bigger, which is something I'm personally delighted about. And number two, just yesterday, in fact, LinkedIn published a report called the Opportunity Index, where one of the top key takeaways of the report was 85% women, working women in corporate India, feel that gender actually is a hindrance for them to get pay parity or to get the kind of pay, just because
Yeah,
they're
I
a
saw
woman,
that.
they actually lack the opportunity, and that's the biggest impediment. So that is the reality. It's a survey across the country. So two questions, two different ends of the spectrum.
I'll take the second one first. I would have loved to see in that survey what percentage of those women actually challenged the status and said that we are not happy with this, we are challenging this, why are we getting paid lower? I will not be surprised, Ankit, if LinkedIn does that follow-up research and comes back and says maybe less than 10%, because that's the reality. So, what are we dealing with here? We are dealing with thousands and thousands, a mindset, a culture that has got created over thousands, millions, I don't know what, but, many, many, many years. And it is not going to change easily. A lot of the times, what I find is the biases that we see are unconscious. Um, if you hold the mirror up, the person at the other end immediately realizes that he or she, and by the way, it's not just men, they're often women who also have these gender biases. They immediately realize that they're making a mistake, because I have held up the mirror to several people. Right? What is important is for us to start holding up the mirror. We have to, if we go in for a performance review or whatever. I have gone in my career in so many performance reviews where I was told, simple things like, everything is great, but you have to tone down your aggression, because don't forget you're a woman. And my immediate answer was, I will absolutely do that if you can please show me the book where it says women have to be nice and smile all the time and little timid shy wallflowers, etc. I will absolutely change, because maybe I didn't read that book. I didn't read that rule book. So please show me the rule book. Is it your company book? And the moment I asked the question, no matter who it was on the other side, completely backed away from it and realized that, and then I could see the eyes getting bigger, because They were internalizing what I'm asking and saying, "Oh my God, I just fell into the gender stereotype type by telling her trap by telling her that. Should not have said that." 9 out of 10 people apologized immediately and said, "Debjani, thanks for bringing that up or making me realize I'm getting into that trap." So there are ways without, if you don't want to be obnoxious, sometimes I think it's good to be obnoxious maybe, but because people sometimes deserve it. But no, don't follow my listing here, don't be obnoxious, but there are ways to challenge that status quo. Simple thing, if you feel you are not getting paid equally and you are doing equal work, what stops you from asking your manager or HR to give you the reason for it? And if they cannot give you a compelling enough reason, that is that justifies why you're getting paid less, and that is had nothing to do with your gender, but I'm sorry, but this person is actually doing much more work, or this person is showing much more initiative, or these are the gaps that we see in you. Those are all fair comments, and we have to be ready to take that feedback, because many times I have been proved wrong where I've been told, "Hey, you lack this." So I've taken that as constructive criticism and said, "Okay, so now I know what to work on." But it's important to have those conversations. I think the biggest mistake women make, we grumble about not getting paid equally, and you know, we participate in surveys and God knows what. But how many of us actually go and have those conversations with the right people to say that it is not okay? And I think that has to become the need of the hour, where if we see an injustice either to ourselves or to a colleague or to someone else, we have to have the tribe mentality and hold the mirror up for the tribe. I think it's going to be very, very important to do. And your first question of my advice to women, um, you you just have to be tremendously committed and tremendously fearless about this journey, because there is no other way of surviving this journey. That's a fact. And it's not a men versus women thing. It is tough for women. It is tough for women. It will stay tough for a few more years. We have to be ready for that. We have to accept that, and we have to fight towards changing that for the next generations. So I think for me, the biggest thing is about being fearless, about being resilient. You will fall a few times. That's perfectly okay. Fall forward. So when you get up, you're a few steps ahead. Please be ambitious. Ambition is not a bad word. Ambition is a very good word. It shows that you are hungry to do more. That's how we see it. I see it. So be ambitious, communicate. And when you see something wrong, just don't keep quiet and say, "This is what happens," and crib about it. When you see something wrong, speak up, hold the mirror up. Each one of us have to start doing it. It's so important. And it takes a village to build a child, to raise the child. So it's extremely important for women to realize the power of the tribe, the power of the community. And if we walk together as one, I think we are unstoppable. But we really have to build that tribe mentality, and success for one is success for all. I think that's what we have to realize.
My God, Debjani, you have given so many quotes. I'm gonna pretty much frame all of these quotes, digitally frame them. But I'm getting goosebumps with your words of advice. I cannot thank you enough for making time from your extremely busy schedule for Get Hired India, for LinkedIn News India. And as always, we wish you all the very best, all the good health, and all the good success. And happy Women's Day in advance.
Thank you, though I hate the concept of Women's Day.
Yeah, it's not one day. Hey, hello, it's 365 days every day, every year.
Wish me every day, then I'm happy.
Okay, happy Women's Day today, Debjani.
Thank you. And great talking to you. Thank you so much. Loved our conversation.
Thank you, Debjani. Have a great day. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Debjani Ghosh, President of NASSCOM, an absolutely energizing conversation as we've seen here in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to Get Hired India, where we keep getting you absolutely amazing conversations like this and very, very actionable advice on what kind of skills are in hot demand for building a career in different kinds of sectors. The series is co-hosted by my colleague Dipti Jain and me. So we would love to see you next week as we celebrate International Women's Day with some other incredible guests. Stay tuned to LinkedIn News India for the latest in news from the world of professional news. Thanks so much. This is Ankit signing out. Have a great day.